today's presentation, we will be showing how to install the Old Man EMU Nitrocharger Sport Front Shock Absorber on a 2008 Toyota 4Runner. Raise the vehicle on a twin-post lift. Remove the passenger side front wheel assembly using a 21mm socket. Begin the process of disconnecting the passenger side stabilizer link by cleaning out the Allen hole using a pick tool. Loosen and remove the nut using a 17mm box end wrench while holding the stud with a 6mm Allen socket. Once the nut has been removed, disconnect the link. Remove the driver's side front wheel assembly using a 21mm socket. Disconnect the driver's side stabilizer link in the same way as before. Apply penetrating oil to the lower shock mount nut. Then remove the nut using a 19mm socket. It may be necessary to hold the bolt with a 19mm box end wrench. Remove the washer as well. Begin removing the belly pan by removing the front two bolts using a 12mm socket. Then remove the rear bolts. The vehicle we worked with had a damaged belly pan and was only held by one bolt in the rear. Once the bolts are removed, lower the rear of the belly pan and unhook it at the front of the pan. Mark the alignment cams so that they can be repositioned after the installation is complete. Mark the rear cam and then mark the front. Apply some penetrating oil to the front alignment cam fasteners. Loosen the alignment cam and lower control arm by holding the nut with a 19mm box end wrench and loosening the bolt with a 19mm socket. Loosen the rear alignment cam by holding the bolt and loosening the nut. Remove the lower ball joint mounting bolts using a 19mm socket. Remove the lower shock absorber mounting bolt by tapping it out with a brass hammer and a punch. Swing the lower control arm down out of the way. Begin the process of disconnecting the upper shock mount by applying penetrating oil to the three fastening nuts. Open the hood and bend the inner fender slightly using a pry bar to gain better access to the inside nut. Remove the inside nut using a 14mm socket. Remove one of the outside nuts. Then, while supporting the shock absorber assembly with one hand, remove the third nut. Then remove the shock absorber assembly. Be careful not to damage the drive axle boots. Install the new shock absorber assembly in reverse of the old one. Align the upper shock mount studs with the upper shock mount holes. Install the three supplied serrated nuts and snug them using a 15mm box end wrench. Using a lady's foot pry bar, rotate the bottom of the shock absorber until it aligns properly with the lower shock mount in the lower control arm. Swing the lower control arm back into position and align the lower shock with the lower shock mount. Install the lower shock mounting bolt. It may be necessary to tap the bolt into place using a brass hammer. Be careful not to damage the threads. Install the lock washer and the nut. Leave the nut loose for now. Using an under-hoist jackstand, lift the lower control arm and align the lower ball joint bracket with the steering knuckle. Apply red thread locker to one of the lower ball joint bracket bolts. Install the bolt and snug it using a 19mm socket. Install the second bolt in the same way. Torque both bolts to 118 foot-pounds. Torque the lower shock mount nut to 100 foot-pounds. Tighten the two outer upper strut mount nuts to an estimated 47 foot-pounds. Then tighten the inside upper strut mount nut to 47 foot-pounds. Position the front alignment cam back where it was originally. While holding the nut, torque the bolt to 100 foot-pounds. Repeat this same procedure on the rear alignment cam. Remove the underhoist jack stand. Insert the stabilizer link stud back in the steering knuckle and install the stabilizer link nut. While holding the nut with a 17mm wrench, tighten the stabilizer stud using a 6mm Allen socket. Then torque the nut to 52 foot-pounds. Begin the installation of the passenger side shock absorber assembly by removing the air cleaner assembly. Begin the removal of the air cleaner assembly by unsnapping the air cleaner assembly at all 4 locations. Disconnect the mass airflow sensor connector. Loosen the air duct clamp using a Phillips screwdriver. Remove the air filter. Disconnect the upper air cleaner assembly from the air duct. Remove the 3 bolts holding the lower air cleaner assembly to the body, and remove the lower air cleaner assembly. Gain better access to the passenger side upper strut mount nut by bending the inner fender using a pry bar. Be careful not to damage these electrical wires. Remove the inside upper strut mount nut using a 14mm socket. Repeat all the steps previously shown to install the passenger side shock absorber assembly. After installing the passenger side shock absorber assembly, reinstall the air cleaner assembly. Install the lower air cleaner box. Install and tighten the 3 attaching bolts. Install the air filter. Install the upper air cleaner box and ensure that this tab aligns with the notch in the air duct. Tighten the duct clamp. Reconnect the mass airflow sensor wire. Secure all 4 air cleaner clips. Next, install the belly pan. Notice the hooks on the front of the belly pan. Secure these hooks in the holes on the cross member that is just below the radiator. Swing the belly pan up into place and install one of the rear bolts, leaving it loose for now. Install the front 2 bolts, leaving them loose as well. Normally you would install the 4th bolt here, but as you can see, we have some damage which prevents us from installing the 4th bolt. After all 4 bolts are in, tighten them to an estimated 20 foot-pounds. Install the driver's side wheel assembly. Install the lug nuts. Snug the lug nuts using a 21mm socket in a crisscross pattern. Install the passenger side wheel assembly and lug nuts and snug them in the same way as done on the driver's side. After all the lug nuts on both wheels are snug, lower the vehicle until the tires press against the floor. Torque the lug nuts on both wheels in an increasingly tighter crisscross pattern until 80 foot-pounds is reached. We remind you that installing a lift such as this will affect proper wheel alignment. We strongly recommend that you have this vehicle professionally aligned as soon as possible. Failure to do so will negatively affect tire wear, braking, and steering stability. That concludes today's presentation. We hope these instructions have been helpful to you. If ever we can assist you with your off-road needs, simply log on to www.lowrangeoffroad.com or give us a call at 801-805-6644.